I Am Alive is a game in which you are indeed alive. 10 out of 10 game, buy it now. Being serious, I Am Alive is a third-person survival action game from 2012. That is, in my opinion, a hidden gem that I almost never see anybody talk about, and this is my review of the game in 2026. Now, to be fair, this game is not perfect. As for one, it doesn't look great graphically, especially when you consider how long this title was in development. 7 years to be exact, but that said, the somewhat low quality looks kind of add to the ruined world vibe that I Am Alive was going for. Also, on the topic of presentation, the music in this game is actually really good in my opinion, and it helped to add some tension when needed, and the main voice actors were pretty good, although the subtitles didn't always match what was being said. As for sound effects, they were okay, but for the gameplay, I Am Alive is a really unique and creative title that did many things I'd never encountered in a game before. Some things good, some not so good, but I Am Alive is definitely one of a kind. Take the stamina system for example. I don't recall ever seeing anything like it in another video game. Alright, so you have your base stamina and then also emergency stamina. Your base stamina works like it does in any game. You deplete it by doing things like running, climbing, or some combat moves, and it refills on its own. Or you can use some items to instantly refill your energy. But you also have emergency stamina, which can only be used when your base stamina has run dry. Once you start using your emergency stamina, your total max stamina starts to decrease, and you have to find specific healing items, like bottles of water, to refill your max stamina to full, if that makes sense. And also, the combat in this game, while a little clunky at times, is also unlike anything I have ever seen. So, you have 3 weapons, a machete, a bow with arrows, and a pistol. There is also a 4th weapon, but I never found it. Anyways, the machete is obviously used for melee kills, but melee combat, while simple, is also kind of tricky. Okay, so your character is more or less an ordinary Joe. He's not Duke Nukem or Corvo, a really tough dude or a person with lots of combat training. He's just an average guy in a world where bad people like to gang up on solo travelers. Anyways, the first thing you want to do in combat is stay calm and assess the situation as best as you can. And as long as you move slow and don't draw any weapons, enemies usually won't attack, but will instead slowly walk towards you. From here, you need to determine if any of your opponents have guns, as they're the most lethal, and you also need to keep an eye out for environmental hazards that you can use to your advantage. Anyways, if any foes have guns, if possible, you want to try to walk up to them before a fight actually breaks out, as you can quickly kill one enemy with a surprise attack before an all-out brawl erupts. In most situations, that is. Late in the game, some enemies will attack you on sight, but I'm discussing combat for the majority of the game. Okay, after your one quick attack, you then need to pull out your gun, or your bow, and start pointing it at enemies, and if any more bad guys have ranged weapons, fire on them before they can shoot you. Although baddies can pick up guns from their fallen allies, so do keep that in mind. From here, you need to yell at your opponents to get back by pressing the X button. Some enemies will just surrender, while others will back up, giving you some time to think, but not much time, as they will charge you if you take too long to think. And ammo is a precious resource that shouldn't be wasted, so you need to think quickly and wisely. If a foe surrendered, you can approach them and press X to knock them out. Or, if they backed up against something like a fire or an open pit, you can press X to kick them into environmental objects. Now, please, try to keep track of all the things that the X button does. Alright, after you have done all of this in combat, you can attempt to retrieve arrows if you shot enemies with your bow, so that you can shoot the remaining foes. Or you can do a struggle kill, which is only a viable option if you're fighting one opponent, and you perform struggle kills by walking up to an enemy with one of your ranged weapons out and pointing at them. Then, once you get close, you press X and rapidly mash the RT button to gut an enemy. Alright, so that's 4 things that the X button does. It could get a little frustrating, as sometimes I would try to yell at enemies to back off while at close range, only to accidentally begin melee combat, and then get whacked from the side by another enemy. Oh wait, I almost forgot to mention armored opponents. They're enemies with armor, and melee attacks are useless against them, and they can only be killed by shooting unarmored body parts. And you can loot their armor, along with looting things like bullets and health supplies from normal fallen enemies. Ooh, you know, one thing that makes the combat of I Am Alive so interesting is that combat encounters are usually over in under a minute, and you often go long periods of time without fighting, and yet the fighting system is so deep and complex while somehow being simple. Like I said, I Am Alive is a unique game, and while the fighting was a little jank at times, especially with the bow being a bit wonky, I did overall appreciate what this game offered here. Open combat out of the way, there was also some stealth combat, which was pretty much you either quietly shooting baddies with your bow, or sneaking up behind them for quiet takedowns. Or, fighting could occasionally be completely avoided by just walking away. On a similar topic to combat, you restore your HP with items such as painkillers, med kits, and certain food resources, and you can generally find supplies lying around in addition to being able to loot them. Now, sometimes when you pick up items, your character will say, "Somebody might need this," which brings us to talk about the survivor system. In Alive I Am, Yoda's version of the game, you can sometimes find people who need certain things, and if you can bring it to them, you receive info about the in-game story, and you're also rewarded with a retry. Ah yes, the retries. Another thing that makes I'm Alive stand out as a one-of-a-kind game. Playing on the normal difficulty, you start with 3 retries, which, upon your demise, you have to use to respawn at the last checkpoint. If you run out of retries, you gotta restart the entire level, although thankfully, this never once happened to me. Now, when you finish a level, your retries are refilled to 3 if your retry pool hit below 3 retries, and you can earn more by helping people or just finding them lying around on occasion in the form of video cameras. A very interesting mechanic, especially when you consider that most Xbox 360 era games just let you respawn indefinitely, and this kind of added a bit of an old school vibe to I'm Alive, as some PS1 era games like Reloaded and Duke Nukem Time to Kill had retry systems versus infinite lives. But the way I Am Alive implemented this felt a lot different from the likes of Gremlins or In Space's PS1 adventures. Okay, steering back to wrap up gameplay, outside of fighting or looking for supplies, you spend a pretty big chunk of this game climbing, doing some light parkour, and trying to navigate a destroyed world in which a lot of outside areas have poisonous fog, which damages your stamina. But you do get a gas mask, which lessens the fog's dangerous effects. Now, the climbing could be a little wonky at times, as I might be pulling the joystick down, and it would read me as pulling it to the left, or vice versa, which wasn't fun, and climbing drains your energy, like I said earlier. But on most areas, you can plant a resting place for you to stop at and to catch your breath. Oh, you also get a grappling hook, which you can use to swing on some items, like in Bionic Commando. I think. I never actually played that one, I've just seen footage from it, but I know it has a grappling hook and that you can swing around and climb stuff in that game. And I think that does cover everything gameplay-wise, although I guess I could add that there is a hardcore mode, which I didn't try. You know, for a game that's 4 to 6 hours in length, I'm Alive does pack in a lot of interesting concepts and ideas, and I hope that my words were good enough at summarizing them all. Now for the story. It was overall pretty good, although the ending wasn't the best and it felt a little bit rushed as it did leave some loose ends and some questions left unanswered, but overall, the storytelling was alright. Performance-wise, other than the jankiness of climbing and archery, and the sometimes messed up subtitles, this game ran well most of the time, although every now and then, I would just randomly lose health for no apparent reason. I would just glance over at my HP bar and notice it was way lower than it was 5 minutes ago, even though I didn't recall taking any damage. I don't know if this was accidental, or if the game is designed to just randomly take some HP from time to time to maybe add to the hardcore survival setting, but this was something worth noting for sure. On a different note, the atmosphere of this title is really well done. I have brushed on this topic a wee bit, but I'm Alive did a pretty good job of portraying a world that is in ruins and has just gone down the toilet, with all the destroyed buildings, some horror elements, stuff like that. With all things said, I think to give this largely forgotten Ubisoft title a 8.9 out of 10 by my grade scale. I got this game on sale for under $4, and I definitely got my money's worth, although I will say that this title did take some time to grow on me, as it was a little frustrating at first when you're just getting started. And I feel like this video game really does feel like a Xbox 360 game, and it fits right in with the Xbox night theme in my opinion. Now, I'm Alive never got a sequel or any sort of a follow-up, but Atari did buy the IP from Ubisoft last year, and I'm curious to see what Mr. Rawson and those under him have in plan for this game, if anything. So far, the only thing they've really done was delist this digital-only game everywhere, and then republish it exclusively on GOG. For whatever reason, although I have heard that the PC version is a lot rougher than the Xbox version performance-wise, so hopefully our Bubsy-owning friends there will relist it on Xbox, and sorry for that noise in the background. That said, this title is backwards compatible on newer Xbox consoles for those who bought it before the delisting, so that's good, at least, I guess. As far as a similar game I could recommend, I've seen some comparisons to The Last of Us on PS3, but I never played that one, so I can't personally say if they're similar. I might say to try Metro Last Light. While that one is a first-person shooter, it's also a dark, post-apocalyptic game that you might enjoy if you like I Am Alive. And that's it for my review itself. Thanks for watching and for putting up with my horrible narrations. For newcomers here, I mostly review and discuss games on Xbox 360. So feel free to check out some of my other vids if that sounds interesting. And follow me on GameRam for hints at upcoming vids and behind the scenes content. For our Bible verse of the day, I read Genesis 1:1 NIV. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And, as always, none of my content is ever made by robots, and I don't consent for my voice and likeness to be copied and modified by robots in any way. Keep YouTube human and only support man-made videos. God loves you all, take it easy, thanks again for watching. My foot's falling asleep, so I gotta go. Have a good one, peace. Take this stamina. On a different note, the atmosphere of this title is really well done. I have brushed on this topic a little bit,